I thought about this, and I thought the kind of the craziest thing that most people don't know about me is the way back when I was in high school, I was a card-carrying Boy Scout. And the reason I was, yes, was because my father was in the military. We moved around, and I was actually going to school, high school in Korea, and they did not have enough girls that were interested in Girl Scouts. So they allowed me to join the Explorer group, and I literally carried around a Boy Scouts of America card-carrying Boy Scout right here.
That is awesome. I love that fun fact. That is wonderful. And Lieutenant Governor Evett, we have you with us this morning. I do not see you. I think your camera may be off, so I'm not sure if there's a way to turn that on. But we'd love to see your face and hear from you something we may not know.
Let me see. Well, guys, I'm actually trying. I'm traveling back from DC, so I've never had to work this with. I can see everybody and my camera's on, but I'm not really sure why it is not showing me. But fun fact about me is I live with my mother. My mother has lived with us and our family since pretty much my father has passed away. And it was something that I treasure is that my grandmother lived with us growing up. And so it's really nice having 3 generations in one house. My mother was actually a first generation American, so it's great to hear all the time, like it was for my grandmother, stories of where we came from in Poland and great traditions that we carry. Like the doctor, I am a huge Christmas fanatic, and so have 6 trees up in the house, and we carry a lot of our Polish traditions through the holidays with us.
That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I know this year, I think family has really been emphasized for all of us, the importance of it and just how precious our time is. So I'm grateful again to get to know a little bit more about each of you. And we're going to hop into these questions because I know everybody hopping on here, your time may be limited today. So we want to get to as much as we can. If you have joined us, just one more reminder in the last couple minutes, if you've hopped on here, if you will mute your microphone and then if you can turn off your camera so that we'll just see our panelists here, that would be a huge help so that we can have everyone up here on that main screen as we're participating. All right. Again, lots of good questions at the end too. Also, as you're listening and those who are participating with us, if you're thinking of something, hey, I really want to ask this question, keep in mind we'll have that Q&A at the end. So drop that question down and then we'll put it in the chat because I want to get those questions answered as well. One of the first questions I want to start with is we know that this pandemic has changed a lot of things. And I want to know particularly from each of you how COVID has changed how you work specifically and how the pandemic will now affect and change your work moving forward. Lisa, do you want to start with this question for us?
Well, I'm happy to. Amazing. The COVID, once in a lifetime, hopefully. None of us have ever experienced this before. And as we work, one of the things that was really a change, and it was probably the greatest challenge as well, is that because we were dealing with something that was unprecedented before, every single decision had to be very deliberate. We had to anticipate, how did that affect all of our employees? How does it affect ourselves? And as the leader of such a large site, we have about 2,300 people here, it was very important for us to make sure that we were trying to take into consideration in every single decision, what is that going to do to each employee? What is it going to do to the business? What is it going to do to our customers, our processes? And the number one goal, of course, was to keep everybody safe. So as we started to go through, and I don't know how many of you remember just the volatility of protocol. Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Is it okay if you social distance for up to 15 minutes in one room or something along those lines? And every single decision needed to be carefully thought through. What were the ramifications of those? So I think that kind of to wrap it up, the greatest impact not only on myself, but on every person who was in the decision-making process, had to think through. It's amazing because as you remain in industry or in a particular field, I'm sure, for long enough, things become a little bit consistent. If this, then that. And in this particular instance, it was very, very deliberate. Everything had to be very deliberate. I will say as well that when we talk about our employees, there are so many things that we have asked of them. When we talk about, and what I'm talking about are the people who actually make our products. When we speak of our leadership team, we asked of our leadership team so much. We actually, between the beginning of April and the beginning of July, made 81,000 phone calls to our employees, checking on them on a daily basis, because it is so important that we recognize that we're social beings. And it was important for us to maintain very, very good contact. So that was a lot of work. Even though we weren't necessarily producing tires, we were still working tirelessly. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, man. And that people overproduction, I think, has been stressed in 2020 more than any other year. I think it's incredible you took that lead on that, because I think people started to get lost in all of this. We were all of a sudden isolate, and then it was really easy for people to feel like they were on their own in all of this. And that's incredible. 81,000 phone calls. That's a lot. But I know it's just indicative of the time and space that we're in. Dr. Artis, do you want to take this one next? I'm sure it was very similar. I saw you on the national networks even talking about the efforts to check on students there at Benedict College. What's that process been like for all of you?
All encompassing, quite frankly. As you might imagine, Benedict is largely a residential campus. So typically 86% of our students live on the campus. And so for us to suddenly have the campus closed and have those students shuttled out to their respective home environments was really challenging for the college. And more importantly, being able to maintain contact with those students in the midst of COVID-19 was a full-time job for a lot of our staff and faculty. We did quite a bit of outreach in terms of these kinds of meetings, Zoom and GoToMeeting and Meet Me conversations teams with our students and with our parents to sort of stay in touch and provide information. I don't think you can over communicate during a crisis. It's important that repetition and consistency and answering questions and helping give voice to people's concerns is really, really important for us during this time. So we used social media, we used platforms like this, we used email, and of course those all important phone calls that were just referred to let people know that you care about them and you're thinking about them really was a big deal for us throughout the summer. And then as we welcomed them back in the fall, we really saw the net effect of that. Students understood that we cared very deeply for them and that we were very concerned for their well-being, particularly as the summer kind of heated up and we saw sort of the racial tensions flare and superimpose on top of COVID-19. It was so critically important to stay in contact with these kids. And as we come up on the holidays now, we know their emotional well-being is also a challenge for a number of students who don't come from families that you and I may be more accustomed to. Being able to stay in touch with them over Christmas is sort of our next rollout communication plan to let them know again that we're thinking of them, caring for them, and looking forward to seeing them in January.
And may I ask too, I mean, because so much of this is case by case, day by day, with decision making on the level that you're having to make decisions there at the college as far as safety, health, what's in the best interest of the students who may not have anywhere else to go but live on the campus. How do you all go about that decision-making process to try to factor in all of the different elements that may be impacting each individual student's life?
Lots of data points for us. We do tend to pride ourselves on being data-driven decision makers with hearts. And so for us, the initial conversation is, can our kids get home? And so we assisted and supported them, subsidized their travel to get home. The next decision was who has access to technology. We deployed laptops and hotspots, and unfortunately recognized that 12% of my kids live in areas, particularly of South Carolina, that do not have access to broadband. And so we had to figure out what the workaround looked like for those kids. We then conducted an assessment of the home environments of our kids. 31% of Benedict College students are housing insecure. That doesn't necessarily mean they're homeless sleeping on the street. It means that they're crashing with a relative or friend. They're on a couch, on a floor. They have no place of their own. They have no place to call home. They're inside a house, but it's not a home. And so as we began to understand the depth and breadth of those challenges, food insecurity, housing insecurity, et cetera, we began to try to facilitate those needs through the provision of financial support, quite frankly, that was funded through our CARES Act dollars. And again, the online learning brought some new challenges. Kids who were dyslexic, how do we tutor and support them? How do we engage students who may not learn well in an online environment? How do we understand learning styles better? Lots of that kind of work. And then, as I alluded to earlier, emotional well-being. And given the trauma associated with COVID-19, the immediate displacement from campus, which many refer to as home, the exacerbation we experienced in the long, hot summer post George Floyd, and then, of course, health concerns. 13 of our students were diagnosed with COVID-19 at home. All of those things really fed into our decision to reopen the campus in August in as safe a manner as possible. And just super pleased and proud of my team. We finished the semester with a 1.4% infection rate, which I think is just Herculean under the circumstances. So I think we did our best to protect our babies.
It really is incredible, Dr. Artis. I'd love to turn now to Lieutenant Governor Evatt. We can see you now, which is wonderful. I'm glad we've got you on the picture here. And of course, we're talking about processing this pandemic and leadership from all levels. So I cannot imagine what it's been like on the state level to truly have to realize and process and then execute when it comes to all of the decisions that have to be made in such unprecedented times. So Lieutenant Governor Evatt, I know we started kind of with that question, how the pandemic has changed how you work, but I would also love your insight into how you all have had to process making these decisions on that state level.
Well, thank you so much. And it has been quite a year. When you're looking at this from a state level, the governor likes to call it the three legs of the stool, right? You have to balance fiscal health, physical health, and mental health. And putting all those things together, when the pandemic first started, we were worried about schools. Well, there were a lot of things you have to take into consideration, as Doctor knows. A lot of the children in South Carolina, a very large percentage, the only meals they get come from school. So it wasn't so easy just to flip a switch and close schools. We had to figure out how were we going to feed those children. And I'm so very proud of what we did here in South Carolina. We used our school buses and our school bus drivers. We delivered meals, 2 meals a day, making sure all the children in South Carolina ate. And we didn't say, oh, if you received meals at school, somehow tell us that. We fed anybody who came to a school bus. We knew that some families that may not have needed this help would need this help now. And so that's what we did. We were very concerned about our businesses. Adding a catastrophe that we see in some states where they were so heavily shut down would just exacerbate this problem once we tried to reopen up. So I felt the governor, I'm so very proud to lead with him. He was poised and targeted. He made sure that what he shut down, he just paused. We paused for our hospital systems, really, to make sure that we didn't overrun them, that they would give them time to actually figure out the best way to treat the people of South Carolina. And then we opened it up. And so, we had to look at things from all different levels. We're very concerned about mental health right now. We're worried about what effects that happen. We were worried about children. 60% of reported child abuse is done by teachers. What people don't realize, and that's why the governor has been so vocal about getting children back 5 days face-to-face with their teacher, if at all possible. He asked for every district to have 2 ways of delivering education now, a virtual option. So if you had somebody at home that was immune compromised, or a child who was immune compromised, they would have that. But if they didn't, we need to get our kids back in school. Abuse is one reason. Home is not always the safest place for a child. It's hard for most of us to understand that, but it's not. We also know Superintendent of Anderson District 5 sat with us and the Vice President. We talked about long-term effects of not having children in a classroom in front of a teacher, something we're all very concerned about, and it keeps me up at night, not just because I'm Lieutenant Governor of this great state, but because I'm a mother of 3, is that 2 years of interrupted education, we will start to see the highest dropout rates that our nation has ever seen. Which is why it's so important. The governor had a great press conference this week talking about PPE, and we have an abundance of it to give to school districts who have not opened up the way we were hoping they would. And we are here to partner with them to make sure our children get back in the classroom.
Again, so much to process. So I just want to start by thanking the 3 of you, because the roles that you're in are touching such critical aspects, obviously, of so many different important parts of our state that goes on to touch so much more than that. And this year's topic, of course, for this panel is Lean In, Lean On, Women Leading Through Turbulent Times. And just to be able to pick your brains and to hear from you in these turbulent times and what it's been like. I appreciate you being open and transparent about it, but also willing to share, as I think all of us are processing this on different levels. So that being said, and each of you sharing in different spaces here, I think that we know that it's changed so many things, especially what life looks like right now. But the question a lot of us have is, will life ever operate the way that it did before this pandemic, right? Will we see things go back, or have we kind of hit a point where things will hybrid into a new way of doing things, taking into account what's happened in 2020? So I'd love to hear from all of you, specifically just, do you think we will adjust from here and adapt in the workplace? Do you think we will go back to some things? I know this is a very general and broad question, but from the seats that you're sitting in, what does that future look like for you? And Dr. Artis, if you want to start this question for us.
Well, sure. The short answer is no. Nothing will ever go back to the way that it was pre-COVID-19. We are in the Garden of Eden and we don't have any clothes on. Like, we just realized that. And so I think it's going to be a variant on what we have seen before. I think we've all been grounded. I think God doesn't make mistakes. I think our foci have changed to some extent. On a more practical level, here at Benedict, for example, we began to use embedded open source materials instead of textbooks. We knew our kids didn't have them wherever they were. We will never go back. We now have embraced technology in a very holistic way, and we find that these open source materials are so much more engaging, so much more palatable to our students. Why do we go back to typical hard copy textbooks? And so there have been some natural evolutions that I think have been for the better, despite the trials and tribulations of COVID-19. I don't know that I want to go back. I think we're going to embrace the new normal.
Well, how about you, Lieutenant Governor Abbott? Do you what will things look like moving forward from here?
Well, I agree. I think we are not going to go back to where we were. And I think I've heard from businesses that they found lots of efficiencies. A lot of business owners were very skeptical about like a work at home. And now they're seeing that their bottom lines are prospering for that. And I think that we'll see a hybrid. I don't think it'll be like it is now for some industries, because let's face it, we are creatures that like to interact with other people. And I think it's been the one downside that I touched upon on the last question, is that mental health. We like to be around people. I think we'll see more of maybe like rotating days where you maybe work at home some days and work in the office some days. For children, I hope for the most part we go back. I think, as the doctor said, we have, I think there are things that we're forced into, like electronic books and things like that, or maybe more efficient and maybe more cost effective. I have one about to go back to get her law degree. And I remember the price of those books, you know, when you buy them as opposed to when you sell them back, right? So how nice would it be to do a download on that stuff? So I think some things will move forward, but I think children really need to be with their peers. I think it's how we develop interaction. It's how we, develop those skills going forward that make us empathetic people and that make us good workers in the workforce, right? Knowing how to problem solve in a room with people. So I hope when it comes to our K through 12 education that we really we go back to what we had. But when it comes to work, I think we're going to see a much different environment. And I think in government, our great Kevin Swato, that is part of DMV, they've come up with all kinds of ways, kind of making us move forward a little bit so we can do things online that maybe we couldn't do before.
And that is what has been so amazing out of this, is people had to pivot so quickly that I think it did kind of force us into how can we figure out a new way to do something that we've done one way maybe for so long, to kind of fill in the in-between. And now I think we are in that space of starting to look at, okay, how do we make this better for the long haul from here? And what does that look like? And so, Lisa, I'd love for you to tackle this too, just because I know there are some things we can do from home. We can't manufacture tires from home. So
We cannot.
What does that look like?
We've offered to let people take machines home with them and do that, but it's not going to work. So yeah, I think that when it comes to, are we ever going to go back to where we were? I agree with the other two. No, I don't think we will. However, I tend to disagree that this is the new normal. I think that we are continuing to evolve. I think we're continuing to figure it out. But to what the Lieutenant Governor said, we are social beings, and we need to have that kind of interaction and support. And so I think that it is important that we understand, as we continue to move forward through this pandemic, and understand what we have to have, not just the physical well-being, but the emotional and the mental well-being, I think is critically important. To your comment, there are certain things that we absolutely can't do from home, and we need to figure out how to do things in a very safe manner, which I believe that Michelin has done an incredible job overall. It's not just US 5, it's not just the Lexington campus. It is really and truly Michelin globally, because we've been dealing with it in Europe, in Asia, as well as in North and South America. So we've learned a lot from everybody else. The intent, however, is to make sure that when we come together, we're using that time to the best of our ability. Problem solving, as the Lieutenant Governor said. The last thing that I will just throw out there is, I believe that the doctor said, God doesn't make mistakes, and I agree wholeheartedly. We will figure out how to get through this. We will figure out what the new normal will be. I personally do not think it's what it currently is. I think we're going to be better than this.
And I know certainly we hope and pray, all of us do, that that is the case. And I believe it can be. As you ladies were all talking, I couldn't help but think, when you're in a leadership position, I know that as we have been covering all of this on a news perspective, obviously, and what that looks like, and even the messages that we get, I can only imagine what your email inboxes look like throughout all of this. And I see your faces. And I know that there's so many overwhelming pieces that, we couldn't possibly go through each one of them. But what I would love to know, and I think the women who are listening in today, what would be so helpful for them is, we know as leaders that we can't make everyone happy. But we also know we have to try and do what's best. And in this situation, it's been so polarized in the sense that we've got a very serious health issue on our hands. And then we do have a very serious issue when it comes to mental health and people being isolated. And they're two very crucial and important issues that continue to, I think, be at the forefront of people's minds is you're going to have people who feel very passionate one way and people who feel very passionate another. And it's, as a leader, balancing those emotions and those feelings and those very real issues to make your best decisions. So what I'd love to hear from you all is, how do you personally process all of the emotions that have been thrown your way, all of the concerns that have been thrown your way, and let those, and I guess the best way to phrase it is, how do you then go forward in making your decisions, knowing that there may be some people who disagree with you, and what that decision-making process looks like. And Lieutenant Governor Evatt, I'll start with you. You're the number one on this one as far as the rotation here. So if you'll kick this off for us.
Well, thank you. And really quickly, I would like to say thank you to Michelin. I had the good fortune of going there and touring their facility, and I say kudos. You have done a great job of keeping your employees safe, as so many of South Carolina employers have. Kind of goes along with this question. I had gone around the state to highlight the great things that businesses were doing so that people would feel at ease about going back to work, knowing that employers were right there doing everything they could to keep people safe, to keep their doors open. And I wanted really, we hear so much negative on the news all the time that I wanted to see that here in South Carolina, our employers were stepping up to the plate. So thank you, Michelin. You guys did a great job. Yes. As far as how do we balance all this, right? I think common sense, I hear people say all the time, isn't so common anymore. But we need to get back to our gut. What do we know is right? As women, I think we handle things, we process things much different than our male counterparts. I think the best thing that I kind of advise people to do is kind of listen, right? Let's not be so, this was a pandemic that was new, and everybody was doing the best they can to release information as soon as it was coming out. We've never had that, I think, in our history, where we couldn't look at data and analyze it a little bit before we gave an opinion. So people got so focused on, let's just use masks for an example. In the beginning, we heard no mask, no mask, no mask. Then we heard, oh no, mask up, mask up, mask up from our medical community. And, I think what we have to do is look at all the data that came out. Was masks the only thing that kept us safe? No. There was a whole variety of tools in our toolbox. We needed to keep socially distant. We needed to wash our hands. We needed to use hand sanitizer, but first and foremost, we needed to make sure that when we were sick, we stayed home. And that's very different, especially as women, right? We never get sick. And even when we do, we can't be sick because we're still taking care of our family and cooking dinner and getting groceries and all the things we do. And I can tell you firsthand, when I came down with COVID-19, and then one by one, my husband came down with it. And then when my mother came down with it, I mean, I couldn't be sick anymore, right? Because now you have to take care of everybody else. So it's really what I tell people when I hear the debates about every topic that we have, what is working, what is not, is use good common sense, use your heart. Keep, just the whole idea of this was to keep our family safe. And I think the governor did a great job by letting people make up their own minds, right? Like, how does it work best for you? What works best in your home? Do you want your children to go to school? Do you want them not? I think we have to trust our instincts. We know what goes on in our house. We know what's best for our families. And I think having leaders empower you with that, I think helps people make the right decisions. I think, in our country, we don't like to be told what we have to do for us, for our families. I think when you empower people with good information, and you give them the ability to make good choices, I think the majority of people do. And I think that's why we have had such great success here in South Carolina, is we've allowed people to make good choices. And we can see that, we have now the 6th lowest unemployment rate in the country. We're down at 4.2%, which means our amazing South Carolina businesses are up and running. So I just tell people, trust your gut, trust your instinct as women. It's definitely a superpower that we have.
How about you, Lisa? How have you processed this from a leadership perspective as well, and all of the emails and concerns that come your way?
Well, I have to agree with your initial comment that there are two camps generally on this. There are those who are very fearful, very concerned, and then there are those who feel like, wow, this has just been blown out of the water, and it's not as big a deal as they're making it out. They are making it out to be. So the one truth that I think is always out there is that everybody has something going on in their lives. They have a sick parent, they have a child, they have a neighbor, they have a good friend, but there is a way for everybody to end up actually recognizing that they do impact other people. It's not just about them. So one of the things that we've done is we have created testimonials. We have, very fortunately, we have only had one person out of our approximately 2,300 people who has ended up in the hospital. But that was the first one that we requested. Give us a testimonial. Explain what it felt like, what did you go through? And we are working with others who have not necessarily landed in the hospital and been quite as serious as he was, but it's a way for us to be able to connect and to make it real. Every opportunity I have, unfortunately, I also have a parent who is just recently diagnosed with cancer. And so I try to make sure that I can also give that kind of testimony. And it's amazing how when you look around a room and you are able to connect with people, what's in it for me? What's in it for the people that I love? You can see it. You can see it connect. And I think that we've won over so many people because of the level of communication, the effort to talk to them about what's going on in your life. How are things with your family? It's always that kind of a startup. Let's find out how things are going. We've got a lot of people who I think are incredibly resilient. We empower our people, as the Lieutenant Governor said, we empower our people because we inform them, and we try to make sure that they understand what's necessary, both for the short term, while we're dealing with a spike in the number of cases and things like that, but also for the long term. How's the business going? We need for people to be owners of what the future is, what the present and the future is. And that's the way that we approach things.
And I think what I'm hearing, it really from both of you, is that in these times that we all are so isolated, people truly just want to be seen. And I think that's what I have garnered as well, from messages, emails, comments, that you just feel like no matter where someone is personally, they just want to know that you hear them where they are or how they're processing something. But that's hard as a leader. And again, what we're talking about is leading through these turbulent times. So Dr. Artis, I'd love your take on this as well. I know you probably hear it all. So how have you processed and then led through that as well?
One by one. Social media has made it a lot easier for my students to express themselves, and of course for my staff and faculty. And I think you really hit the nail on the head. People want to be seen and heard. They want their voice to be valued and appreciated, and know that they are not an anonymous number to you. And I think our students certainly feel that way, as do our staff and faculty. There is an entire body of literature out there on a concept called intentional empathy. And in this time, more than ever, I think that's critically important. It's really easy to dehumanize someone on the other end of a computer screen or an email or in social media or a message, rather than remembering you are talking to a living, breathing person with feelings and fears and ideas and thoughts. And so by being very intentional about listening, as the Lieutenant Governor has mentioned, I think we have to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Our faculty, for example, so I'm kind of, I have not had the privilege of having COVID yet, or hopefully never, but have been fairly consistent in my need to come to work every day. I am in the office today. I'm in the office every day. We reopened our campus. We're getting back to work here at Benedict College. And so when I issued the sort of edict, everyone is returning to work. There was some unreadiness, as you might imagine. And I probably was somewhat insensitive in not recognizing that there were genuine fears from people about being in the classroom with young people, about moving around on the campus. And so we had to dial back and we had to give faculty time to come onto the campus, to walk their classrooms, to say, look, I would feel more comfortable if I had a plexiglass barrier. I think there needs to be additional hand sanitizer stations in my building. I want to see no more than 6 kids in this classroom. By hearing our faculty, really hearing them, listening to their fears and concerns and accommodating their requests to the extent possible, help them to see that we certainly care about their well-being, that while my students are my polar star, they're my primary concern, they're not the only constituent that I'm responsible for. And so I think being intentional and empathetic and listening and supporting people's legitimate concerns and answering with good information. You know, Linda Bell was gracious enough to get on a Zoom with my faculty and answer their questions about, well, whether they would be safe if they came back to the campus. And so arming them with as good an information as we could get our hands on at the time, clearly continues to evolve. I think we're demonstrating our genuine concern for the well-being of everyone here in the Benedict family.
Wow, I appreciate all of you sharing from that perspective, because again, I know it's a lot. And every day, I'm sure you're getting continued messages and calls and having to process this from so many different points of view. So that being said, it is 11:15. So I do want to turn to a few of the questions that we got sent in ahead of time from some of the people who are in our conference today. And also want to remind people to go ahead and put any questions that you may have in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And so I'm going to start with one of these because I know some of this has been a little heavier. I mean, again, we're talking turbulent times. It's not easy to process. So I'd love to know from each of you, where do you look for inspiration, or where do you get that inspiration from to get up and start your morning and to go in and making these heavy decisions? I mean, who is it or what is it that empowers you or you feel like strengthens you day by day to continue in your leadership role? And Lisa, we'll start this one with you.
That one's pretty simple. The people who are here every day, just servant leadership. Simple. That's
Love it. Yep, I love it. Dr. Artis, you want to take this one?
Same here. The students at Benedict College, I affectionately refer to them as my oxygen. They're the air I breathe. They're the reason I get up every day, and I couldn't be happier to be here at this moment in time.
And Lieutenant Governor Evett.
Well, it's gonna be unanimous. It's the people of South Carolina. You know, I'm very honored to be able to reach out and help as many of them as I can. And I'm sure my other 2 colleagues here on this call will tell you there are some days you wake up and you go, what am I doing? And am I making a difference, right? And then you'll get a phone call or I'll get an email and somebody will say, thank you so much. You know, you put me in contact with this person and they solved my problem. And then it energizes you again, because then you realize I have affected somebody, and it gives you the energy to keep going on. And so for me, it's the people of South Carolina as well as my own little nuclear family. You know, I still have one in school that's in 8th grade, and I have one in college, and a husband and a mother that's 92. So I have a very broad base of people that have very different issues, but they all kind of energize me in their own way.
So when you listed that list, it set me up perfect to ask you this next question. How are you caring for yourself while caring for all of these other people as well? And you can take this one first, Lieutenant Governor Evett.
So I do like to get out and hike and get fresh air. And I try to do all those things that make you happy, get back to nature. I think it was something I didn't do for a long time. I love to horseback ride and, things like that we couldn't do, right? Because we get so busy. And when COVID started, everything kind of stopped and so you only went to the grocery store when you needed to. And then it was like, what do I do to get out of these 4 walls? And, our state parks had record-setting years, people taking their families and going to our beautiful state parks and hiking. I mean, we were literally having to close the parks because we had so many people trying to get in and kind of wait so we could not overrun them with people during COVID. So getting outdoors again, I mean, it's really been wonderful. And reconnecting on that level with your kids. Like, we always made sure we had family dinner, but really getting out and hiking with them and hearing them and seeing what my son, like his actual work, right? Because he was doing it virtual. I think that was very grounding for me, and it made me very settled.
Mm. Lisa, how are you caring for yourself during this time?
I think we're all going to repeat the same thing. Get outside, fresh air, So I've always been a walker jogger. I'm a walker jogger biker. I'm taking up the game of golf, which is I have a long way to go. And then tennis. So it's just get out, do. I think that the one thing about exercise is it's the greatest stress reducer ever. So if you can remain active and do things and feel good about it, you're outside breathing that fresh air, it's a wonderful, wonderful antidote for so many things.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Artis, is it unanimous or you have something else to add in this?
Not unanimous, which explains why they look fabulous. And well, never mind, whole other conversation. I am allergic to all forms of physical exercise. I'm 100% certain that if I use up my beats, we have a certain number God allocates us. And if you accelerate your heart rate and use them up faster, you'll just die sooner. So that's sort of my theory. And I try to be stationary and keep my resting heart rate at all times. So no, I have not exercised. I have not. And that's probably why I gained the COVID-19, right? For me, it's really quiet reflection. I never stop. I'm always running with the kids, the husband, the school, the whatever. And so this has forced me to stop. I can't go to every meeting. I can't be out and about in the community like I normally am. And so I'm writing for the first time in a long time. I love to write. I've started more than one book. I'm writing, and it's cathartic for me. It gives me a chance to sort of settle my thoughts and ground my spirit. And I'm loving just a lazy Saturday afternoon with a pen or a laptop and just getting some writing done. Writing a memoir about Christmas right now, our favorite holiday traditions in our family. That's a gift for my mother and for my daughter, so that those things will sort of be recorded somewhere and hopefully outlive me. So I'm writing and reflecting.
That's
Not
beautiful.
not running, not walking.
I love your answer. I love your answer.
Well, and I think that's wonderful. I look forward to reading that memoir. But I also just think, I hope that the women that are on here as well, I'm sure you maybe have similar answers, or maybe you have found that thing. I like to call them like past loves, things that maybe we did do a lot in the past before 2020 that fell off at some point because life gets so demanding and we are caring for so many people in our personal and our professional lives, that I do think it can be so easy to forget what are those other things that I'm gifted with or that make me tick, that contribute and not only inspire others, like I'm sure the memoir will do, or like you all have been able to do to your through your families, spending that time with. But I also think about what is it that we're not doing because we did put it on the back burner that really would have an incredible impact, because it energizes us and then we're better able to serve the people around us in our professional demands. So I just can't thank the three of you enough for sharing your insight today, for giving us kind of a quick snapshot. Look, I wish we had a whole other 30 minutes to dig into some more of this, but what we do know is that all three of you are wonderful leaders, and we appreciate your heart to serve people, because we know that that's really what matters at the end of the day. And I want to thank all the women who have been on here listening. I wish I could see all of your wonderful, beautiful faces as well. I hope you know how grateful we are that you spent this time with us, but also just how much you are appreciated. Wherever you're sitting today, whatever you're doing today, just know that you have not been in 2020 alone, and you're not alone, and you are seen and you are heard, and it is because of your leadership and because of who you are, where you are in the space that you are, that I'm sure a lot of other people have weathered this crazy year as well. So I'm going to toss things over to Danielle Boyson. She's a past Women in Philanthropy chair. She is going to do our closing and our raffle for us as well. So Danielle, take it away.
Hey, hopefully you can see me now. I turned my video back on, but again, I just want to thank you ladies for coming today and sharing all the very, insightful things. And I think that many of our companies that we work for, or even if we're self-employed, that we've gone through during this time in this last year. And obviously, we're all still trying to figure out what that new normal is. But what I want to say, and what I keep listening, and what I hear from my company, and what I hear from y'all today was, let's be mindful. Let's have that empathy for one another. Let's listen to each other. Let's collaborate, and that's meaningful for our families, for each other, and our community, and even as members of our Women in Philanthropy members. Reach out if somebody you need some help, or you just need somebody to listen to, or you want somebody to talk to. We're all here for one another, and that's really what's important in our community. And I thank you again, ladies, for coming on and really supporting and giving us some of your insight today and your leadership. We really, truly appreciate it. Also, I wanted to real quickly just thank some of our sponsors for today. Our patron sponsors is Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, First Citizens. Our WIP signature sponsor is Abacus Planning Group. Our WIP supporting sponsor is Ag First. Our breakfast sponsor is Charlotte Berry. Our event sponsors are First Community Bank, Guild Mortgage, and Nephron Pharmaceuticals. We had host sponsors of Martha Scott Smith and South Carolina Power Team. And of course, we have our United Way of Midlands annual sponsors, BB&T, which is now Truist, Ag First, Colonial Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield, South Carolina, Burr, Foreman, McNair, First Citizens Bank, Lexington Medical Center, Nelson Mullins. So we truly appreciate all the sponsorships that we get annually and for our events. And hopefully we'll cross our fingers for maybe some kind of in-person Power of the Purse. We'll see, but stick in there to all our members and all of our guests and so forth. And we hope that you would join any of our future events. And now the drum roll, because we have a raffle that we're going to do. And this is for the Kate Spade leather convertible crossbody. And the winner is Caroline Marchand. And hopefully I said that right, but so big congratulations. Yay.
This is the purse.
There we go. Look at it. It's pretty.
This crossbody convertible and this matching wallet. So congratulations, Carolyn or Caroline. I'm not sure how you say it. As a nod to our Power of the Purse, we wanted to do
Sarah will reach out to you and make sure that you get your purse. So we so appreciate it. And I'm getting all kinds of wows and thank yous. So again, thank you, Pam, Lisa, and Rosalind, and Mary King. Thank you for hosting us and guiding us through this conversation. We truly appreciate all of you. So
thank you, everyone. Have a great day.